In this episode, I sit down with Jamie Mair, a leader who's shaped the fitness industry from its early days and evolved into preventative health. His latest venture, Yunopod, bridges fitness, healthcare, and technology with a simple idea: make early detection and body insight accessible to everyone. In seconds, the Yunopod can map your skin, measure your body in 3D, and replace outdated metrics like BMI with meaningful, actionable data. We talk about the future of preventative health, the real meaning of longevity, and how innovation can help us live better and not just longer. Let's connect the dots. So welcome to this week's episode of the Connecting the Dots podcast, the Longevity Playbook. I'm here with Jamie Mair, and we're calling this episode the Yunopodcast, and that's going to be clear as to why that's so clever as we get to know Jamie and Yunopod. So let's get it kicked off. Welcome, Jamie. Could you connect the dots for us? Where did your career begin, and how did that path lead you to where you are today?
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Jennifer. So, gosh, way back in the 90s, I started selling memberships for the Living Well group, and then I was involved in the Health and Racket company in the UK and actually in South Africa as well, who are now known as Virgin Active. I then actually jumped to the other side of the fence, if you like, and I started selling Cybex fitness equipment and the Step. I don't know if you remember the Step, but in the 90s, where the industry was quite small, it was one of those products that just literally sold like hotcakes. It was quite incredible. Anyway, so many years on from that, I left.
With the Step, do you mean like...
Yeah, do you remember the Reebok
Sorry,
Step?
the Step is like for step aerobics?
The original Step. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the original Step, where you had the little bits where you could adjust the platform, and you had green sides, and you had the purple sides, then you had the grey sides. Yeah, I mean, we could not get them quick enough. It was incredible. Yeah, it's great, good times. And you think how small the industry was then as well compared to where we are now. Very, very different. Yeah. So I then actually, with the fitness equipment side, I got involved in a startup, a company called Exertris, which was it was a really cool static bike. It was designed off an Audi TT. It was all chrome and rounded off and everything, but it had an interactive gaming platform to it. So picture a Tetris quickly, where your diamonds fall down from the top of the screen. Your cycling and your effort load would dictate how quick they fell down, and so you'd be completely engrossed in the game. And the idea was, after 15-20 minutes, you'd had a good sweat and a cycle, and you hadn't got bored. And that was the theory behind that. That went really well as a business. I then got involved with Frank Reed, who founded Virgin Active, and we started a company called Virgin Health Miles. There was quite a big group of us, and that was sort of connected to a business in South Africa called Body IQ. And the principle behind that was that if you went into the gym, you put your arm into a machine, and as long as you stayed in with certain parameters, you paid less health insurance, and even actually the health insurer would at some point pay your membership as well. And that still is a very strong business down in SA. But actually that particular business is now known as Virgin Pulse in the US, and very much focused on corporate well-being. So then in 2010, I set up my own gym, which went really well, and got a good turnaround on that, got a nice healthy return, and sold it 8 years later. Yeah, to Speedflex actually, which was good. And from there, I decided to build Yunopod. And Yunopod, in its first edition, operated under a different name. And I actually met the late Jan Spatikia, who was the founder of Energy Fitness Clubs. And he was very into, Jamie, you should try this, you should look at this. And we went through it. And the whole concept was, let's visualize physical change rather than just look at numbers, whether it's weight gain or weight loss. And that's kind of where it started. But as we the timing was with lockdown and everything else as well. But, as we progressed, it seemed more obvious that healthcare was the right route to go, and really to pivot to that. But we were too far down the line on this existing company. Long story short, went through the long, laborious task of acquiring the assets and the IP, and to start again. And I actually managed to persuade David Cumming. He used to own MemberTrack. He's quite a serial entrepreneur in the industry. Great guy. Head up the tech side. And he said, that's fine, as long as our pure focus is preventative healthcare. So that's what we've done. And here we are today.
Like what a journey. I think you've hit the bingo card of fitness sector experience. It's really phenomenal. And I have to tell you, when you said step, and I know we've had a conversation about where you started before, but I didn't realize that the step was part of it. But my mother was a step aerobics teacher, and when
Okay.
I hit puberty, they were still teaching on the wooden boxes.
Oh
So
yeah.
when the step came out, like that was such a big thing, and it became like, I don't know, some kind of like you showed your stripes by how many steps,
Yeah.
how many risers you could put on
Yeah.
that step. Like
Yeah.
it was serious credibility if you could get more than four. But and I did step, I think, for close to 10 years because my mother continued to teach it.
Yeah.
But
It was.
that's so funny. It
It's.
brings me right back.
It is such an amazing. It was. I mean, it was so innovative, but yet so simple, right? And actually, people did put up more than four, but you weren't stepping up and down it at that point. What you would do is you would lie on
No,
it
you're
and use the
basically like
dumbbells.
doing a jump.
Yeah, and or you lie on your back on your dumbbells, and now you look at the boot camps of today, they're lying on benches with dumbbells and barbells and so on, and it's the same stuff. So it just where it is today, I don't really know if I'm honest, but gosh, for a good 10, 15 years, it was the go-to, yeah, for the studio.
So getting, evolving from where you started to Unipod, that's really where you start stepping out of what's traditional fitness, and you're saying moving into healthcare, but I think where you also fit maybe in the Venn diagram of this business is what's emerging as longevity. So, and longevity is actually such a booming sector that it's already recognized by the World Economic Forum as a key sector. So, like, what do you think that you are going to be in or adjacent to what's considered longevity with Unipod?
Just
And
going
what does
back
that
to
mean to you?
yeah, well, something you just said there was really interesting. So when we first started the business, I had this vision of that you had sort of put it into categories. You had fitness, health, wellness, medical. And let's go for those four. This is pre-lockdown and through lockdown. Longevity as a sector actually didn't really exist, and so but what my sort of ridiculous ambition was to try and bridge the gap. So let's take Nuffield's quite a good example. They've got their fitness business, but they've also got their medical business. And how could,
Yep.
they were always looking at ways with their corporate well-being in the middle somewhere to connect the three. And actually we thought maybe with a product like this, we could do that. But it was difficult. It was really hard to bridge. But you come out of lockdown and a year or two later from that, and health suddenly is completely different to what it was then. So that's where I found myself. So you're right, it is a pivot, but it's not as big a pivot as one might think just by the way the industry's evolved. And look, I think Unipod is actually, we're right in the thick of longevity. We're a bit of health optimization. We assist in a bit of biohacking. We even offer some hyper personalization, all the funky sort of phrases that are used. From a data point of view and so on. And I think if we look at it from two different spectrums, we've got the consumer end, and then you've got the medical part, and it's all the bits in between. Sure. And we're trying to. There's some gaps there, sure. When you're relaxing, you're recharged, and you're rejuvenating. That's fine. I think we don't really quite qualify in that area. But to understand more about yourself, or to be a bit more proactive because you might have some issues in certain conditions, or you need to exercise more, or actually you're good at what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Again, be stronger, be a healthier person, or again, to the medical use, the early detection. And we kind of tick a lot of those boxes, and that's where we operate in. So the list can kind of go on. And I think, it's a grey area, isn't it? There's no clear boundary where longevity starts and where it finishes. Look at wellness. It was a similar thing when that was the buzzword. Yeah. So,
Well, how do you define longevity? Like, how is it? How are you articulating it for yourself now? Because if it is an emerging sector, and I think certain businesses are definitely using or categorizing
categorizing themselves in that area. What does it mean to you, and where do you fit?
It means to me, look, I'm going to live for however long I'm going to live, but what I want to do is have as many good, full, healthy years of that life as I can. So, I don't want to live longer just by getting myself involved in longevity. I just want to live better for the time I'm here. So that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I look at it from a personal point of view. And look, if I can use the Yunopod and I can get an early detection on something, which I'll get onto what we cover later, but then to me, I will be proactive, and that ticks that box. But also, just from a personal point of view, in terms of the bioimpedance measurements and your general health, that's useful for me as well, to see progression or maintain as one gets older. Yeah.
I think everyone that I've spoken to thus far about longevity actually translates what we're saying longevity is living a longer life to living a healthier life. So it's actually more about health span than it is living long. It's living well as long as possible.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've talked about in our previous conversations is the accessibility level of longevity services, because as it's been this booming sector, what you see is there's a whole lot of services that are available at the top price, which is not creating health span, democracy, so to speak. So, can you talk about that in terms of?
No, I agree with you. I think actually that's one of my key points. I think is that sort of wellness longevity is still a bit of a playground for the rich. It is for people with a higher disposable income, and they may already be spa goers or just involved in some sort of health and fitness high end anyway. But it has to be for the wider population. And the technologies that have come out to date have really struggled to offer a compelling and accurate measurements and feedback and so on for people, at an affordable price. So, there is some great tech out there, don't get me wrong, but it is very expensive. And the only way they can make that commercially viable is charge a lot for it, whether it's the business to business or it's the direct to consumer. And it's just trying what we've managed to do is we've made it accessible for people to get this full body health experience from the pod at a very affordable price. I mean, it really is super cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we've created a whole lot of buildup about what is this thing, what is Yunopod. So let's go back to the point in your career where this became a business idea. So what inspired the creation of Yunopod? How long has it been in development, and what challenge or problem are you aiming to solve with it?
Yeah, as I touched on before, we wanted to create something that was visual and really not just number based. So it was this 3D model that you could look at 360, upside down, any angle you wanted to. Believe it or not, quite daunting for a lot of people when they did see themselves at angles they'd never seen before. But what it did offer was a true reflection in body shape change. And you can stand on the scales and you can look in the mirror all day long, but you think you haven't lost weight. But after having done your full-on weight loss program and then coming for a second scan and overlaying one with the other in the Yunopod, you can physically see the grey area in the body shape change. So that's really powerful and that's really compelling. And that's where it started from, that health and fitness side. But obviously that can link into other areas within the sort of the longevity buzz bits of that sector now. So look, Yunopod really started properly again in sort of 2023, and we built the pod, and the objective really was to have ultra detailed capture. So we scaled it up massively. And what we've done is we built a clinical interface. And so when someone has a scan, they can look at their own personal data. And just to make it clear, you as the consumer own your data, so it's yours and you're looking at it. But you're able to then say to your consultant or your doctor or whoever to say, here is the axis, and there is an interface that has been built for the medical practitioner as well to analyze the data. And yeah, it was all about sort of getting a full encompass sort of, really quality grade information that they could use inside the body as well as outside, where initially it was just on the outside. We've now, with new technology, we're able to capture an awful lot inside the body as well. But we're not a medical product. We just to be clear, we're not a medical product, but what we are is a device for medical use. So they can use that. So we're basically, we're facilitating a medical diagnosis, if you like. So what we're doing is we're providing data, pre-op intel. It might be, a good example, a dermatologist. Okay, we've done the scan, and they can look at the scan on a screen without a dermatoscope, and they still get the same quality of the image. So it's very quick and it's very efficient for them. They can even put an Oculus headset on and have a look around the person like this, and then it's done really quickly. So where, traditionally, if you're getting a full body sort of skin analysis, that'll take an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it will cost you £400 or £500. Small surface areas are more typical, but bits can be missed then, where with this, you don't have that situation so much. And then one of the other features we looked at was, because we have this capture where we capture the person's circumferences on the outside, starter, we looked at BMI, and BMI is just, it isn't accurate, and it does have its flaws. Now, it is accredited in some products, and that's fine, but I think the medical people don't actually take it too seriously, and body volume index has always been a measurement they would rather take. And that was typically through an MRI machine or through something else, and it was long and it was staff intensive and expensive. And that's been the reason why there's been barriers up against it. But we found a way, in part with the 3D modeling and from the internal side, to be able to capture body volume index as well as total surface area. They sound the same, but actually the total surface area is much more for sort of pre-op intel, for areas like oncology and radiotherapies and so on. So what we want people to do, the ideal usage is, unless you're, in the gym 7 days a week and you want to see body change every month, I would suggest people use this 1 to 2 times a year. It's very quick, you're in and out in seconds, and you can track your change. Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to go back through a few things, because people who are listening to this will not be able to see. We'll include the pictures of the Yunopod on the video version of the podcast. But for those who are listening, can you help them imagine what the Yunopod experience is? So I'm walking up to a Yunopod, which looks like.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that for, it is hard because I live and breathe it, right? And so, sure. Picture, for want of a better way, picture a stand-up sunbed in terms of the size and the footprint. Okay, you're walking up towards a stand-up sunbed. That is what we call our pod. Okay, you open the door, you step in clothed. As you're in there, while you're in there, you strip down to what you're comfortable with. Guys might typically be shorts or boxers, ladies might be underwear or exercise boob tubes and so on. And then less is more in what you wear, to be honest, because we're capturing the skin, but whatever you're comfortable with. And then you follow the instructions on the pod. You have handles that you hold on to, that you adjust for your different height, depending on how high you are. And then all you have to do is stand still for about 2 seconds. It's actually slightly less. And the capture is done, and that is it. So once you've done that, you leave the pod, and that as an experience is really short. And if you think about what's in the market, and when you're going to go do self-analysis stuff, it all takes time. Where actually the real experience with Yunopod is post-scan, when you start looking at the results on your screen. Yeah, so I don't know if that makes a bit more sense on what the product is in terms of the hardware.
Absolutely. And it's fully enclosed. So it's like there's a door that you open and can completely close before you get the scan. And then I just want it to be really clear about what I would get in my reporting. So it's like, okay, you've scanned. So I have a skin scan that I could provide to my dermatologist if I chose to to identify potential skin cancer, pre-skin cancer. So I get an immediate screen, which is great because I think most people don't do that because it's hard to see, and a lot of the spots are in hard to see places on your body.
Yeah.
And then you said I get an impedance measurement, so I get a body composition measurement. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And
yeah.
then you said, and then I get a total body measurement, which is
Body,
phenomenal because that's the other thing. It's like when you do waist or waist to hip or just, certain body parts, you don't ever really comprehensively measure your body all over. So that is another pain point that's taken away. So that's fantastic. And then you said body volume index. And for me, I don't have any way to place what that measurement is for. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, so body volume is sort of a comparison to BMI, and but it actually has it operates in different indices. So you take the entire person, and the ratio of fat to muscle is taken into account, and so on, and you get a much more accurate reading. So if you're looking at your own body volume and you want to get that down in the same way as BMI, for starters, you're working on a more accurate positioning. But it's also, if you're sharing this with your health practitioner, it's much more useful for them because they're working from that as well. So that's the reason behind that. And I think there's some really interesting. It's particularly gone popular in the US, and there's a company who've managed to get a really accurate body volume reading they've raised tens of millions, and you line an MRI machine for 22 minutes and pay $500, where before it took an hour and a half at $1,500. So where I think we've maybe got something here is we can do this in a couple of seconds for 40, 50 pounds. So it's just so yeah, that's our USP. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people, especially on the fitness side of things, have been complaining about BMI for many, many years. So to have something to finally address BMI and replace BMI is already a good thing.
Yeah.
So what I wanted you to give me a little bit of a rundown was, if I've gone into the Yunopod, I walked in, closed the door, got undressed, got my scan, got dressed. It's probably been 2.5, maybe 3 minutes tops. When I come out, what information do I now have in hand?
Okay, so today you're then going to go onto your personal interface, okay, what we call a clinical interface, and you'll be able to study 3 different things. You'll be able to look at a full body skin analysis and mole mapping, okay, total person. And that's number one. So, and the second one is we create a 3D model. And the 3D model is for tracking body shape change. And it's it's addressing the obesity markets, and it's also addressing to maybe the type 2 diabetes area as well. But for people that are physically active and want to analyze that, it's really useful too, because then they can overlay one scan with another and physically see their change. And they can also choose different areas of their body to analyze. So it's not fixed positions, because someone might have a different opinion on where their waist is, and someone might have a different opinion on where they want to measure their biceps. So, and this is weight gain as well as weight loss, okay? Because they may want bigger guns, or they may want a slimmer waist, or both. It's just how it is. So that's really key there. But because of that capture with the bioimpedance, we're able to deliver the body volume index that we touched on earlier, rather than the traditional BMI. So the third component is the bioimpedance measurements, and that's a full scale of FDA approved readings. And actually we've written an AI around it. So what it does is it self-analyzes the data, and then it throws it back at you. So a person with not so much knowledge understands what the readings mean to them. And they may say, so I may look at it and go, okay, a male of my age, the general trends are this, and I sit here or here in some of them and some of them here. So it's just giving me a perspective on real world on that. Yeah.
Yeah, people in your age group, people in your category where you map
Yeah,
within the population.
correct. Yeah,
Very, very, very cool. And I think that's, you know, all of the things that you're describing are actually pretty, in our current situation, can be pretty uncomfortable tests, right? If you have to go and get undressed and have
yeah,
someone inspect all of the moles on your body, that's pretty
yeah.
uncomfortable.
It's
And
intimidating.
exactly, exactly. And
Mm.
knowing your measurements to that detail, I think, is really powerful. And there's not a comparable that you could really do or have a person do unless you're going into a machine that's measuring you.
Yeah,
And body composition, now body composition can be really easy, but the accuracy is
yeah, yeah,
scales pretty bit
yeah.
pretty has a wide scale of accuracy depending on the machine itself. So I think that's the fact that you're giving people tools to give them agency to do something with it is very powerful. So
Yeah, I think it's
what
important to answer. Sorry, I was just going to say just very quickly. I think it's important to, if you're consistently inaccurate, I think that's just fooling everyone and it's a waste of time. So
yeah.
one of the things. So look, this product started when I met this company that had worked in forensics and had worked in sort of big rail projects and buildings and film with animals and people and so on, and it really is fascinating business. But they captured data with these bespoke rigs, and then hundreds of guys and girls would put the data together for the client. What we've done is we've taken that concept but automated it. So when now the person or the consumer steps in the pod and then steps back out, they're getting the same thing, but we've automated what we've captured. And so the capture itself is super quick. It's quiet. It's in a private environment, as you say. It's non-invasive. It's, and so there's no intimidation, and you're in there literally for as long as it takes you to take whatever you want off and put back on. And then it's the analysis afterwards, which you can do in your own environment in a where you're comfortable to look at it. Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight something you just said there. So.
Yeah, no, I think this is really, really powerful, because I think that the more information that you have and the more that you can see that you can steer the impact of your choices, then you give people more agency in steering their health. And,
That's right.
and all of that combined with the fact that you're making it accessible and affordable, you're creating the opportunity for more people to have Healthspan. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is where we are now with Yunopod. Where do you think you'll be in 2 years? Things are changing so fast. Are you already on that roadmap?
We are a bit actually, yeah. But there's some trade secrets, obviously, so I can't go into too much. But there are no, but don't get me wrong. There's a number of really cool things we're doing, and I think there's some really there's some new technology. Look, the way it's designed, and you're inside, you have these sort of camera towers, and you have light panels that can be ultraviolet or LED and so on. So for different styles of capture. So we're set up to maybe offer a service in optometry. And so that might work. Or we're looking at stuff in dry hand technology, which is really interesting for things like blood pressure. So it's instant. We don't want to put a cuff in the middle of the pod, for example. So, it's things like that. So actually we're scaling to offer more and more features within the hardware, the pod. Yeah. Yeah. So what we're doing is a couple of those things I mentioned, but I think it's really more about, look, we're fairly new into the market, as you know. We've got 3 areas that actually cover huge topics, and I think it's important to run with those through at least 2026 and across different sectors and different markets. Yeah, so that'll be our focus.
And where are you in the testing process with Yunopod? Like, are there any insights that you can already share or you've seen so far from people using it?
Right. So we've done a number of testing environments, and got a couple of interesting examples. I'll give you an example. So, and I have kind of touched on this briefly already, but there was a person who really wanted to lose weight and get on a very focused weight loss program and had a scan. And honestly, true story. And 12 weeks later, came back for another scan, had stood on the scales, God, I haven't lost anything. And as they saw their second scan and the grey area, it brought tears actually and joy, because actually they'd seen that their body shape really had changed. And it was so powerful. It was brilliant. And actually just meant that they were going to keep going, rather than just give up, and which they might have done otherwise. So to me, that was really powerful. And we had someone who had a bit of skin cancer at the top of their chest, actually, and on the back of their arm. And they you can't really view or track that kind of thing efficiently. So, but within our interface, the scan, the interface will actually identify very small changes. So this person kept coming back literally every 2 weeks just to see if there was any change. There wasn't every time, but there was enough for them to see change. And those areas of concern are highlighted, and that's where they were able to take it to a dermatologist and study those areas. So there were two great ones. And I think we've worked with a private club who sort of everyone gets a scan as they sort of join and arrive and stuff. And that, see, the first scan is it's weird, because people think, oh well, I'll come for one and then that's it. But actually the first one, it sounds terrible the way I'm going to put it, but it's kind of the starting blocks. It means something, but not everything, because you haven't got anything to compare it to. So the real power is then when you come back 6 months later or whatever it is and have a second one and go, oh, that mole's changed, or something's changed, or I've lost a few pounds, or whatever it is. So that's the power of it.
I've got more muscle. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So same thing. Yeah. And then there's the more specific stuff, because they want to be able to take their data to their consultant or their doctor and say, right, whatever they may be going through, they're able to provide really, useful information for them. Yeah. So yeah, we've got some good insights.
Have you thought about creating some sort of score from the outputs, so that there's something that they can, even beyond the three metrics that they can see? Is there something like a health score that can be calculated? I mean, I know a lot of people are coming up with their own KPIs. Is that something that Yunopod's thinking about?
Not massively. I mean, it's a good question. I think it gets easier that when you're no longer in the market, but it is so bespoke, isn't it, for people? Yep. And everyone really does have their own goals, and actually everyone responds differently to how they tackle their own goals, right? Physically and mentally. So to put in a score of, you're now 8 out of 10, for example, is difficult, because that means something to one person, something different to another person. So where we go with that sort of scoring on a bigger base side, who knows? But with the world of tech and what's going on out there, it may happen. Yeah.
I'm just looking for that standardized score. Yeah. And a lot of people are already creating longevity scores, but something that's less marketing and more meaningful would be really interesting. I'm curious how that evolves in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've looked at. I think this is much more personalised, and because it is about you, the consumer, that's had the scan. So it's not necessarily, oh, how do I benchmark? But then that said, as I said, we have this software system behind the bioimpedance that does give you that. But that's slightly easier because it's a technology and it's measurements that have been around for a long time, and so we're able to do that. But that doesn't still mean that's still a general thing to understand, because if you're middle of the, what you might have is say red, amber, green, and if you sit in the amber, that's okay. But if you're you don't want to go into the red, but you don't really know what going into the red means, and so it's just getting that from a sort of an average point of view, if you like, from who you are to for that reading. But that's as far as we've gone with it at this point.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess it's also about what's meaningful to you. Like maybe I want to know where I land in my population age cohort, and maybe that's not important to me at all, and it's just
Yeah,
me versus me. So,
yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
it becomes very individual.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, where like in your vision, once you're really rolled out and Unipod is available to a larger population, where will Unipod be found? Like, where can I go get my scan? Which markets first? Which locations?
So the vision is this, it literally is for, us, use the part, everybody. It really, it is, because of the price point, the accessibility, and the speed and the quickness of doing it. So take that into consideration. Then you can then it's where you're going to go and find a pod. And
Yeah.
we're in some hospitals, we might be in some walk-in clinics, but we're also looking at, we've got the high street market, probably pharmacies in particular, because they're going much more towards the consultative route rather than going in and buying a toothbrush. And I think that we play a really key role there in how that's evolving in some of the chains, and there's some new chains appearing that are buying up some stores as well. And I think that'll be an interesting market to watch. And actually, there'll be a range of health clubs and spas as well that I think that will adopt this kind of programming. But that's fine if you're a member. But what is cool is that actually, as a consumer, you don't have to use the same pod. You can use one wherever it is. So because actually you don't have to go to the particular location where you went previously. So that helps. And then actually we are building one into a trailer, into a horse box, for want of a better phrase. And it will be a mobile pod, and we will take that to the remote locations in terms of into the islands, or just, as I say, where there's population, and in areas like corporate well-being where they might employ thousands of people. They're not necessarily all heading to the same city. Many of them now work from home, and they're all scattered, and they want to offer the service to everyone.
Yep.
So that we can do that with a mobile pod as well as a static pod. So there's lots of markets out
I'm
there.
really happy that I'm really happy that you're moving forward with the pop-up idea, because I think
Yeah.
Unipod on wheels
Yeah.
will really help introduce it to a lot of people. I also think that the pharmacy is a great place to start, because it's on people's path through the course of their life, and it's a trusted environment where people are used to going for health information. So it seems like a really nice and natural fit.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and it's actually a nice bridge to the next question. Like, if you could collaborate with any organization to scale Unipod quickly, who would you want to collaborate? And it doesn't have to be one organization; it can be multiple on your wish list. This is a little bit of the magic lamp with 3 wishes. What would your collaboration wishes? Or who would your collaborations wishes be with?
Well, there's some interesting markets. I think the private medical insurance business is an interesting one. I know that more and more of those companies are wanting more and more intel and data on the individuals they're insuring. It's all about risk, isn't it, for them, and so on. And actually, if you go and get a health check or a health assessment, and it's £300 or £400, maybe £1,000 in a corporate environment, takes an hour and you have to go somewhere to do it, then actually we've got a solution for them that can provide that data very quickly and affordably. So that, I think, would be really good. In fact, and that was a thought, but we've got one. We have a pod in a private hospital, and actually I was in there the other week, and the lady said that actually that one of their clients had come in and said, "Can I get a skin scan," as she called it, because I'd like to provide that to my health insurer to try and get my premium, or to get my quotation to get my premium down. Yeah. So that was really interesting. So that is an obvious market, definitely. And then something sort of slightly left field, I think, is some of the skincare companies that are trying to produce sort of medically or scientifically based products. And, this might just be to revive or even cure, a skin disease. We're not just talking about skin cancer here. We detect about 20 different skin diseases. So what you can, if we can, by the capture, then they can recommend the product to revive it or cure it, then I think that's it. Now that probably could work within a pharmacy environment, ironically as well. But that to me seems a very quick, easy one. Yeah, and then look, it's quick and easy, and it's affordable to, as I said, to produce this data. So actually, the pre-op intel has to be a game changer for the health practitioners, because sure, you go into the hospital and you get a diagnosis and they do this and they do that, but if they already have it and it's there and they can just track it on the clinical interface and look at it before they meet the person, then I think that would be really useful for that market as well. So that's sort of the three that just sort of spring to mind at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even think, as you've got this, phenomenon of the longevity clinic opening, you have this bridge between preventative health and also aesthetic health, because there's so many skin treatments that promise skin tightening and skin transformation, and not just like face, but actually in the body. And what a great demonstration of efficacy of being able to really have a before and after that's not a photo taken with your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's good.
Okay, so zooming out into the world of preventative healthcare and longevity, like, what do you think are the biggest opportunities that are going to be coming at us in the next? I had originally the question 5 years, but I feel like that's too far out. Like even 2 years at the rate of change. What do you think is coming?
Well, I think tech just generally has to become more and more accurate, doesn't it? And I think that's the thing that everyone's sort of focusing on, but also it's in the sort of we're sort of in the world of non-invasive body capture, if you like, and the hardware will improve, but and we've got this sort of big lumpy pod that you stand in, and I think we are definitely a few years away from a mobile phone being able to whiz around you in under a second and capture you, in an uncontrolled environment and so on. So, but they do have many, but don't get me wrong, there are some great products out there which may be small surface skin areas and so on that work. But in terms of the actual total body instantly, I think that's an area there. And I think all this new stuff that's coming out, as we touched on already, it's affordability has to be the next step. We have to be able to do this for the wider population and for the masses, because if we can't, how are we ever really going to make an impact on the apart from the people we already serve?
On the population.
Yeah. So I think that's really key, and I think as long as we can do that and how we do that, then that'll be great. And because it doesn't have to be a medical product, does it? This is just about a product enhancing someone's world or someone's life. It's what it delivers, and we can all put algorithms together, but actually, does it make the impact? And because it's correct and accurate, and that's I think where it really falls down at the moment in some areas. And I think I mentioned it really briefly, but I think there's sort of the way you can capture now. You can get much more information from the wrist. But also with the dry hand, dry feet technology, I think that is actually really going to fly in terms of what we can capture out of people from that. Yeah, that's a big one.
And the information that you give them, with ease and without discomfort, which means they're going to be more likely to remeasure and do something with that information. Yeah. This is very, very exciting. I want to end the episode with a shout out. Is there anyone in your network that's doing great work in this area that needs to be recognized? Who are they, and what are they doing?
Yeah, I think if anyone's come across the Vectra, they'll have seen that. I mean, they do brilliant work in skin analysis and mole mapping. In the same way the DEXA scan does for bone density, I think that's a really cool product as well. You do need to be able to afford it. You need a bit of time, but they are fantastic products. I actually, Neko Health, I don't know if you heard of Neko Health, but they are shouting from the rooftops at the moment about early detection and being proactive and so on. And I went and experienced it, and it is a really slick experience. And actually, there were two issues that were raised from it that I would never even have thought about looking at had I not been. And so actually from that point of view, Necker was brilliant, and despite it costing 300 quid, it was worth every penny to me. And look, they've got 100,000 people on their waiting list, so, and they're opening more and more clinics. So I think they're gonna be one to watch for sure. Yeah. I think I touched on.
I think.
Sorry.
I'm really, really curious about your experience with Nico. You're the only person that I know in my network that has been through their service.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like this kind of solution for people, making it accessible. People want to know more information about their body, their health. We're all living in one. Many of us are curious and would like to hack it as much as possible. But with a gap of information, then you can't do a whole lot unless you know more. And now it's more knowledge becomes more accessible.
Absolutely, and I absolutely did something about it and went and which makes it worth it, right? Yeah. So I will have my second session in February, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, very cool. I'm really happy to have spoken to someone who's actually done it and not just seen the social media reviews.
The health clubs, if you do look at some of the health clubs, and the sort of the longevity that how they're addressing it, and they're even to the point of their medical memberships that they're calling, some of them are calling it. I think they are really well thought through facilities, and they are from a recovery point of view through to the longevity and wellness, relaxing. I think they are brilliant. There are plenty that token gesture sounds a bit mean, but it is kind of a bit of a room with some new tech plonked in it. And actually where, over here, I think, David Lloyd, for example, or Lifetime in the US, sort of these big sort of family clubs, in my mind have tackled it really well. And I'm sure there are others too out there, not taking it away from them, but they're definitely embracing it, some of them really well. Yeah.
I think it's the next step for fitness. You've already, Equinox has already taken big steps in this area, and I think Lifetime in the US as well. But lifestyle medicine is the hub of longevity, wherein physical activity, movement, muscle is one of the core pillars. Yes. So fitness belongs in longevity, and it needs to spread out of just the sweaty weight room, which is important, but there's so much more to it. And I think, this is an opportunity to bridge and maybe even create some partnerships. So I'm really hoping to see Yunopod in some of the fitness operators, because I think this can actually help them make that natural step into longevity.
No, I agree, and it's my background, and we really welcome that opportunity to happen as well. So yes, good.
Well, I hope that's in Yunopod's future. Thank you so much for taking the time and telling your story and teaching us more about Yunopod. I'm really excited about this product because of how it's democratizing information, health information for people, and wishing you the best and speediest path to success.
Thank you, Jen. That's really kind of you to give me your time and allow me to attempt to explain what Yunopod are doing and what we're going to be doing. So appreciate that.
Thanks for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. If today sparked a new idea, helped shift your thinking, or gave you something to take forward, share it, rate the show, or drop us a message. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until then, keep connecting the dots that matter.